Okay, here we go with our Module 6 supply video, part 2. So we are on page 4, and what causes the supply to shift or change? What would cause that leftward or that rightward shift in the supply curve? So we have 5 different reasons. The first one is changes to input prices. So the input is anything that's used to make a good or a service. So for example, let's go back to my marker, right? My marker, it's got plastic, it's got metal, it's got ink. So, the Papermate pen company, they had to gather those materials and then turn them into a pen. So when they got all of that plastic, they had to purchase it. And same with like the ink and the metal and everything else. And those are called the inputs to the product. The higher the cost of the input, the less money that a company can make when they sell it. The lower cost of the inputs, the more money they can make. So for example, if they sold this pen for $1 and the inputs were 75 cents, they can make 25 cents off of it. If for some reason the inputs increased up to 85 cents, now they can only make 15 cents off of it, which would cause the supply to go down, because if the companies really can't make as much money by selling that product, then they're going to switch and do something else, find a new business to get into. And so that means that when input price goes up, supply goes down. And you might want to add to that, so input price goes up, therefore they can't make as much money. So that's why that supply shifts. That says input price goes up, therefore can't make as much money. Number 2, changes in the price of related goods or services. Now it says here, if gas becomes more expensive, they will produce more gas, right? Like there's your law of supply, right? If the price of gas goes up, they'll try to make more of it so that they can make more money selling it. Well, it says here, therefore, the supply of propane will increase, because you don't need to know a lot about gas and propane, but when they change the oil into gas, it also creates propane and a bunch of other products. So if they're going to try to make more gas, then that related product, the supply of that might increase as well. And that's kind of a weird one. There's a few different products that it happens that way. But, kind of like gas and oil is a big example of that. Number 3, I have a star next to it because it is one of the kind of biggest ways to change the supply curve, which is changes in technology. So it says here in your notes, if it becomes cheaper to produce, supply will increase because they can make more money. Now that is very similar to changes in the input prices, right? So if the input prices change, it becomes cheaper to produce, therefore supply goes up. And if technology somehow makes it cheaper to produce, therefore they can make more money doing it, therefore supply goes up. Okay. So number 4, changes in expectations. If they expect the price to go up later, then the companies might scale back on what they're making today so that they can sell it later for more money. So they're saying if they expect the price to go up later, the supply will actually go down today because they'll wait to sell it. Now, they can't do that in every industry, every business, but you will see that in some of them. And then the opposite, price goes down later. They're like, uh-oh, we better sell them all now before that price goes down, which means the supply will increase today. And then number 6, changes in the number of producers. If there's more sellers, there's more suppliers. That one's pretty basic. As far as these go, these changes in or causes of change in supply, you just have to basically understand that if something becomes more expensive to produce, the supply will go down. If something becomes less expensive to produce, the supply will go up. That's the big thing to know there. And a lot of you are writing that in on your notes. Maybe I will too. So kind of more expensive to produce or make then supply goes down. And you could write the opposite of that as well. If it becomes less expensive to produce, supply will go up. All right, let's go to page 5. So page 5 now is putting together supply and demand, and we're going to talk about what's called equilibrium. And we have a new essential question. What is equilibrium and what does it determine? What happens if the market is out of equilibrium? So I started out our graph here. Let's put in the proper labels. P for price, remember that vertical line in P goes on the vertical axis. Q for quantity. S for supply, D for demand. Now, people will sometimes mix up their supply and their demand curve. They will label them in the wrong spots. I do it once in a while. Now, there are 3 ways that I can think of to remember which one goes where. 1, you can simply memorize it, right? Supply curve, demand curves. Okay, supply curve, demand curve, right? Memorize it. 2, you can understand it and look at it, right? You can think, okay, well, law of supply says that when the price goes up, the quantity supplied goes up. So which one of these shows that if the price were to go up from here to here, then the quantity supplied would also go up? Ah, that's this one. Or you can use this trick, which my econ teacher taught me 20 years ago, which is that here's how you spell the word supply. Supply has the word up in it, and so the supply curve is the curve that goes up from left to right. And then demand curve starts with a D, so demand curve goes down. D demand, D down. So 3 ways to remember. All right. So, and then we put a big dot where the supply and the demand curves meet. And we label that dot equilibrium. And let's pretend that this was a graph for markers, since I've been talking a lot about markers. What happens here is that where that quantity supplied equals that quantity demand, the price kind of naturally settles there, and it will determine, it just happens to be at that point. Business owners, they don't create supply and demand curves to figure out where their price should be. Business owners are trying to sell all of their stuff. They're trying to sell it for as much money as possible, and they're trying to make as much money as possible, right? And by business owners doing that, they will price their good or service at the equilibrium price. And we will talk more about that. So let's write that down. The price and quantity of a good or service will settle, at the equilibrium point. The price and quantity of a good or service will settle at the equilibrium point. Now notice I wrote here where QD equals QS. It's where the quantity demanded equals the quantity supplied. And that is a cool spot because it's the market clearing price, meaning that producers are able to sell everything that they produced. Businesses do not like making stuff and then not selling it and just having it lay around. Like, they do not like that. They want to sell all of their stuff because that's how they make the most money. So producers being able to sell everything they produced, that's a happy face. And then it says no buyers show up with the money to buy it, but it's not there. That's a good thing, right? Have you ever had that experience where you had the money to buy something, you go to the store, and it's not there, right? Like, that happens a lot with like concert tickets. That happens a lot with like really popular shoes, where you have the money to buy it and it's not there. Like, that is frustrating for us as consumers or buyers. And it's frustrating for businesses too, because it means that they could have made more money. Ooh, we'll talk about how or why that is. All right, so let's go to page 6. And it says surpluses and shortages. Now, those terms, a surplus, if you have a surplus of something, that term means that there's too much of something. And if you have a shortage of something, that means that there's not enough. That term is different than the term scarcity. Scarcity is like a thing that there always is. It means that we don't have enough of everything to satisfy everything that we need and want. A shortage means that there isn't enough of something that people can buy, and like there's people there, like they have the money to buy it, they want to buy it, but it's just not there. All right, so let's go to this one. It says that the price is above equilibrium, and we're going to name that in just a minute. It's going to be either a surplus or a shortage. If the price is above the equilibrium point, is that going to mean that there is too much of that product or not enough? Well, let's take a look at this. So we're going to label our P, our Q, our S, our D, and our equilibrium point. Now, at this equilibrium point, we are going to label that P subscript E for price at equilibrium. But it says here that the price is above the equilibrium. So let's draw in the price above the equilibrium. So you just pick a point above that. Okay, we can call it, I don't know, P1. And you will see that, you draw your dotted line above. And here, it hits this line, so then draw your dotted line down. And we're going to label that quantity demanded. Because if you look, it hits the demand curve, and then we go down. Well, it also hits the supply curve over here. So that is going to be our quantity supplied. So if the price is above the equilibrium point, that means that quantity demanded does not equal quantity supplied. So let's look over here. Quantity supplied is it greater than or less than quantity demanded? Well, our quantity supplied is over here and our quantity demanded is here, which means that quantity supplied is greater than quantity demanded. So there's a lot supplied. That means there's a lot like in the stores to buy, but not a lot demanded, meaning not a lot of people want to go buy it. So what does that look like at the store? It means that there's lots of it, whatever it is, sitting on the shelves. And what happens when there's a lot of something sitting on the shelves at the store and people don't want to buy it? What do the stores do? You know the answer. They put it on sale, right? They lower the price. So the price lowers, and we might want to put in parentheses on sale, because we all understand that, right? We understand things like going on sale, going on clearance. So the price will drop. And look, it was above the equilibrium point. There's too much of the product. Not enough people will buy it because that law of demand says that when the price is higher, the quantity demanded is lower. And so they will put it on sale. Now, is that a surplus or a shortage? Does this scenario describe having too much or too little of something? It is a surplus. Okay, which means that the other one's got to be a shortage, so we might as well label that in right now. And then just like we just did, we're going to label all of our stuff on here. And it says that the price is below equilibrium, so we're going to draw in the price below equilibrium. And it hits the supply curve here, so that is our quantity supplied. It hits the demand curve here, so that is our quantity demanded. And then it says over here, quantity demanded is greater than quantity supplied. So that means quantity demanded is huge. People run out to buy it. Everybody wants to buy that. Quantity supplied is less, which means that there is that experience. You've got the money, you go to the store, and it's not there. That is a shortage. So what does it look like at a store? Empty shelves. Now, what happens? Well, nothing can happen immediately, but when the store gets more of that product in, guess what they get to do? They get to raise the price. And the reason they get to raise the price was because at that low price, there were still people out there who wanted to buy it, which means that if they raise the price, there will be some people who no longer want to buy it, but there will still be enough people who want to buy it that they can sell all of their items and have that like market clearing experience. If they raise it too much, then they'll get back into the surplus situation where not enough people will buy it. So they'll kind of play with that price a little bit until they find the point where they sell all of their stuff. Okay, write your summary, and I'll see you for Module 7.